Welcome back. Unfortunately, we're bringing you stories this evening of how various state governments are neglecting the children of this country. It's time now to look at Karnataka. Karnataka's government's Anganwadi scheme, which is a scheme that feeds the poorest children under the age of 5, has turned out to be a complete scam in the name of children. Mirror Now's expose will leave you shocked. Food items distributed by the Karnataka government in Anganwadi centers in Bangalore were found to have worms in them. After a complaint by one of the parents, Mirror Now's Neha Hebali did a reality check. She visited 8 Anganwadi centers in the city, and what she found was completely shocking. Worms, insects and ants were in the food packets that were supplied to these centers to feed children. What's worse, almost 90% of those food items in these centers were past their consumption date. Anganwadis are state-run child care centers meant to take care of children under the age of 5. Take a look.
Mirror Now Mega Expose. Rice infested with insects. Dal infested with ants and worms. Wheat flour infested with worms. Food unfit for human consumption fed to babies under the Anganwadi scheme.
Let's actually begin with this rice that we've managed to really put out on a plate over here. You would be able to see a closer look at this rice. Really goes on to show how the worms have been crawling around this rice. And this is from the same gunny bag where all of the rice is used for on a daily basis for the cooking.
Mirror Now visited as many as 8 Anganwadi centers in Bangalore, and every single center has a similar skin-crawling story to tell.
ಗಲೀಜಿರೋದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಡೆಸ್ಟ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಫುಲ್ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಆದಷ್ಟು ನಾವು
ಅಂಗನವಾಡಿಗೆ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅಲ್ಲಿ
ಈಗ ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಾವು ತುಂಬಾ ಅಂಗನವಾಡಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅಕ್ಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹುಳಗಳಿದ್ವೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಹುಳಗಳಿದ್ವೆ ಅದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದಾನೇ ಅದು ಹೋದಾಗ್ಲೇ ಹಂಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಕ್ಲೀನಿಂಗ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಮುಕ್ಕಾಲ್ ಭಾಗ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು ಮೇಡಮ್.
Despite this, vehement denials from the teachers at the Anganwadi.
ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿಸಿದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಬಂದು ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅವ್ರು ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಹೊತ್ತು ನಾವು ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಬರ್ತೀವಲ್ವಾ, ಬಂದು ನೋಡಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನಾವು ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ತೋರಿಸಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಿರೋದಷ್ಟೇ. ಆದರೆ ಫುಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ನಾವು ತಿಂಗಳು ಫುಡ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ತಿಂಗಳು ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ನಾವು ಮನೆಗೆಲ್ಲ ತೊಗೊಂಡು.
Mirror Now confronted Child Development Minister Jayamala. At first, the minister was in complete denial.
ಸರಿ, ಗೋಡೌನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಹೋಗಿ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಗೋಡೌನ್ ಇಂದ ಅದು ಬಂದಾಗ್ಲೇ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ಹುಳಗಳಿರುತ್ತೆ.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಅದು ಹಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ
ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ
ಮೇಡಮ್, ನೀವು ಹೋಗಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಯಾವ ಗೋಡೌನ್ ಮೇಡಮ್? ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಯಾವ ಗೋಡೌನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ.
KR ಪುರಂ ಗೋಡೌನ್.
ಸಾರಿ ಮೇಡಮ್,
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂಗನವಾಡಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸಪ್ಲೈ.
ಅಂಗನವಾಡಿ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಗಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್, ನೀವು ನನಗೆ ನೋಡಿ ಹೇಳಿ.
When our reporter went back to the minister with proof, she offered lip service.
ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಇದು
ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿಮ್ಮ. ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ನಾನು ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತನಿಖೆ ನಡೆಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಒಂದು ತನಿಖೆನೂ ನಡಿಬೇಕು, ಎರಡನೇದಾಗಿ ಪರಿಶೀಲನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಪರಿಶೀಲನೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇವಾಗ ತಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಮ ವಹಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಕ್ರಮ ವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಮ್ಮ.
As Mirror Now blows the cover off the poor state of Anganwadi centers in Bangalore, we ask, is the Karnataka government's Anganwadi scheme a scam in the garb of childcare? Who is responsible for feeding worms in the name of childcare? Let's debate.
In fact, my colleague Neha is live with us right now out of Bangalore. Neha, good evening and thank you for joining us. When you spoke with the government of Karnataka, Neha, and the minister specifically, were they willing to accept that there is a problem at all, or was this complete denial on their part?
Well, that's right, Faye. Absolute denial on the part of the minister in terms of even accepting that there are unhygienic conditions that are there at the godowns, at the Anganwadi center. And secondly, even denying, of course, the presence of worms in all of the raw materials. This is not just the rice. This is not just the wheat. We're talking about the rice, the wheat, the pulses, the peanuts, the multigrain mix as well that's served to these kids. Not one of the items at these Anganwadi centers is free of the worms. Well, also, of course, when we went back to her with proof, clearly you saw how she was not willing to give us a deadline also by when the government of Karnataka would ensure that all of these Anganwadi centers are free of items with worms. Well, she, on the contrary, pinned the blame on us and said, why don't you as a channel fix a date, and by then we would get it done. So that's when, of course, this was a kind of callous, negligent attitude of the minister. And later also, of course, we did go down even to the godown where we found similar conditions. All of the rice, gunny bags, of course, that the rice was stored in were infested with tiny black worms. And so much so that even the gunny bags, of course, and the sacks in which the wheat was maintained was stacked with layers of dust. So, of course, at the end of the day, what really matters here is that this is the food that's being fed to little children below the ages of 5. This is the food that's being fed to pregnant women as well. And this is, at the end of the day, a problem that has to be addressed on, of course, priority, and ensure that all of these food items are rid of the worms at the earliest.
Neha, how many Anganwadi centers did you visit? And what did you find in each of them? So I understand you went to 8 different centers. Did you find problems in the food in all of these centers?
Well, that's right, Faye. We did, in fact, visit 8 random Anganwadi centers in different pockets of the city. And what we found was absolutely startling, to say the least. We found worms in the rice in some of the centers. We found worms in the pulses in some of the centers. And even more appalling is, in most of the centers, what we found is there are products past the expiry date, past, of course, the date that really mentions. Now, if a product is supposed to be consumed by February 2019, it is still sitting in those Anganwadi centers. Those packets are still present in the Anganwadi centers, even in the month of June, almost 3-4 months past the expiry date. Also, when we quiz the minister about this, she's very callously gone on to say that I will look into it, I will ensure that the stocks are cleared. But 655 centers is what she claims to have visited, and she said that I've personally carried out an inspection and there's nothing. So clearly, of course, that inspection was probably just a publicity stunt, probably just an eyewash, or maybe the inspection was not even carried out at all, because we've just visited 8 of the 600, 700 centers across the state. And this was the condition that we found in all of them, and not just in one of the products. Like I said, of course, this was in most of the products. Now, what really we are asking is, why is it that they're turning a blind eye to this, despite the proof being presented to them on our cameras as well? We've shown her. Despite that, it seems like a very, very callous attitude that's being taken over here by the government of Karnataka.
All right. Thank you, Neha, for bringing us this very, very important story out of Bangalore. And Neha visited 8 centers in Bangalore, and this is the capital city. So one wonders what is going on in the rest of the state right now. On the show with me, Vivek Reddy of the BJP and Abdul Razak, leader of the JDS that runs the state government in the state of Karnataka. Abdul Razak, thank you for joining us. Could you please explain to us why the Karnataka government thinks it's fit to feed worms to the children of the poorest people in the city of Bangalore?
The government would definitely not expect to do this kind of thing, especially at a time when we are listening the cases in Bihar. We would certainly take good care of the children, but what I'm trying to say is this is a central government initiative. These food stocks are being kept in godowns. We have just now crossed a very harsh summer, which was very hot this time. So I'm sure there might be some worms. It is good that you have picked up. We will initiate a probe, thorough inquiry, and we will look into it, Faye.
Mr. Razak, summers are always hot, and if my reporter had not visited those godowns, your minister would have never found out, and the children would have been fed this nonsense which they're being fed right now. How is this supposed to instill any faith, and what is the difference between your government and the Bihar government? Please tell me.
No, I'm saying this is a time when we need to look into what kind of treatment we are giving for our children in our state. We need to learn something from the other states. When there is something happening, when we had these people falling down from the Gujarat building, we definitely did a re-see and saw how our centers are here in Bangalore.
Well, if you've done that, Mr. Razak, let me promise you that my reporter will go out tomorrow and check these centers in Bangalore, and then we'll find out whether you're telling the truth or not. Vivek Reddy of the BJP. Unfortunately, I must remind our viewers that for children under the age of 5, the nutrition they receive at that age is extremely important. if there is compromise, which there obviously is, if there's compromise in the nutrition at that age, it doesn't matter what opportunities you provide these children as they grow up, they will never be able to compete. Vivek Reddy, the government of Karnataka obviously cannot see what is either going on under its very nose or is part of some corruption which is undercutting these children.
Well, I think, Faye, corruption is the big issue. Why is the government not able to tackle this issue or hold the officers accountable? Because the government posts these officers and usually the postings are for certain other extraneous considerations. Now the government is unable to control these officers and the officers are busy, this whole thing stinks of corruption. The real worms are in the system in the government. That is the problem. And I'm really shocked as to how Abdul Razak is reacting to it. He says there might be some worms. Can we simply just disregard
Vivek, how can you relate this to corruption?
By saying yes, it is summer, there may be some
This can be related to negligence, but how could you relate this to corruption?
We're all responsible, Abdul Razak. We are all responsible.
This has happened on September 9, 2017 in Bhopal under BJP government.
React like this.
This has happened on December 15, 2015 Surat, Gujarat government. All BJP ruled states as well.
Follow up on this.
So either
what
you
have you done?
Corruption in
what
BJP
have you
as
done
well.
to
Please, hang on. Mr. Razak, let me ask you a couple of straightforward questions. Mr. Razak, one second. Mr. Reddy, one second.
Don't try to slip out of it.
Mr. Razak,
don't try to slip out of it.
Mr. Razak, you're probably right. This has probably happened in several other states. But I'm not asking you about other states. I'm asking you about the state of Karnataka, which your party currently runs. This is in the city of Bangalore. We haven't even checked what's happening in Anganwadis outside the capital city. Please tell me why. And you said it's because of a hot summer. Let's assume if that's the case, everybody right now in Bangalore who's watching this show should find worms in their food, in their kitchens, because they're all going through the same summer. But that's not the case. Secondly, please tell me why. One second. Listen to the question. Listen to the question, Mr. Razak. Mr. Razak, listen to the question. Why is it that food that is expired, past its date of expiry, is being served or being stored and being fed? That has nothing to do with the summer. Why is that happening? Tell me.
14 July 2019 is the expiry date that I saw. Even I have asked some people out there. 14 July is the expiry date.
Give me the expiry date on the screen again.
I do accept there might have had some kind of a negligence out there, but I don't buy what Vivek Reddy is saying, that this is corruption.
So then why is it happening? Either you are inefficient or you are corrupt. Which of the two is it?
I think there has been some part of negligence on the part of some officers who have to go ahead and scan, who go ahead and check. I would definitely thank Mirror Now for bringing this issue up, and we ensure that this kind of a treatment will definitely not be meted out to any child in the state.
But it is already being meted out to the children of the state. What did they eat for lunch today, Mr. Razak? And yesterday and the day before that? And what will they eat for lunch tomorrow? You expect me to believe that you will change the food in all the go-downs by tomorrow morning? Your minister has turned around and said that she has ordered an inquiry now. And once the inquiry comes, then she will make her decision. Until then, what will these children eat?
Definitely some alternate arrangements would have been made after this issue has come out. You know, the government would definitely not go ahead and feed the same food to the children.
I promise you, I warn you, Mr. Razak, that our reporter will be standing at these Anganwadis tomorrow at lunchtime checking what these children are being fed. Do not make promises if you can't keep them.
Faye, let me tell you, under the midday meals scheme, you know, a lot of students, a lot of children are definitely going and eating food every day. This has gone, you know, unnoticed maybe. It is a mistake which is very clearly accepted. I am not denying the fact.
I want to know how this mistake happened.
And assurance on this channel, through your medium, I promise to you, action would definitely be taken.
What action will be taken? Tell me. What action will be taken?
Maybe the change of food grains tomorrow morning itself. How can you go ahead and
you don't even know what action is going to be taken. How can you make a promise?
I'm saying options. You said what actions? Ma'am, you're saying
Don't
what
give me,
actions,
no,
I'm saying
Mr.
some
Razak, don't give
options,
me
like what
options.
we
I have
could go
no
ahead and
interest in
do.
hearing your options right now. I want to hear actual conclusions, things that the government will do, because there are children's lives at stake. Would you be okay with me giving you options if your children's lives were at stake? Would you feed your children rice with worms in it?
No,
Would
definitely
you?
not.
Would you be okay with it, with me turning
Definitely
around and
not.
telling you
I
I
would
will take
definitely
another
not
2
feed
weeks
the
to
same
find
thing,
out
and
if
I
the
don't
worms are real? Just because these children are poor, you're treating them in this fashion? How dare you?
I would definitely not do that, and I don't expect any of the child of the state to go ahead and eat that
What will
kind
they
of a
eat
food.
tomorrow,
Just
Mr.
because
Razak?
it is
What will
being
they
given
eat
free,
tomorrow?
it cannot be of that quality at all.
ನಾಳೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಊಟ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು ಅವರಿಗೆ?
Action
What
would
will they eat
definitely
tomorrow?
be taken. ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಊಟ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ? Where will this good food come
I assure
from?
you with that, the relevant.
Vivek Reddy, go ahead.
Well, I think first of all, Faye, what I would like to ask Abdul Razak is, don't compare the midday meal scheme to what we feed at Anganwadis. Midday meal schemes are usually run by NGOs. There is a far more better procedure. But Anganwadis are where the Ministry of Women and Child Welfare is directly responsible. And look at the way the minister reacts. The minister has no clue about it. The government is also clueless about it. The real problem is, Faye, that they have graders who procure these food grains. The graders will grade these food grains, and the department is responsible for keeping the food grains in safe places. Unfortunately, the nexus between the godown owners and the officers of the government, this is where the corruption comes in. They put it in such dilapidated conditions that the grains will not survive. And for that there is a big loot, there is a big money, and the minister does nothing. The minister has to plug these problems, which are so innate and so widespread across the entire state, that by simply looking at them and by ordering an inquiry and by saying we will put better food grains, it's not possible. The grains are getting rotten because of the worms in the department. How do you filter the worms in the department? Unfortunately, the government has no clue about it, and it doesn't want to do anything. That is because the government, the politicians in the government are also dependent upon the officers.
Absolutely.
So, who bells the cat? Where does the real investigation start? Otherwise,
Vivek sir,
poor
first
people
off,
means
the
we
state
serve them rotten
government
food
funds
grains.
money
Is
to
that the
Akshay
law?
Patra
I mean,
for
is
midday
that how
meal
we
scheme.
behave with them?
Mr. Razak, please stay on point. In this particular case, no one but the state government is responsible for the food that these children are being fed. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, our reporter is going to be back at the Anganwadis, checking what's happening in the godowns, checking what food these children are being fed. And if they're fed food that is infested with worms, God help us all, we are really, really going to take this up, because we will not compromise when it comes to the health of our children, and we will not allow the Karnataka government to treat the poor children simply because they're poor like they don't matter. I hope you carry this message back to the government of Karnataka, that this will be taken very, very seriously. And it doesn't matter how much the Congress party decides that it is going to turn its face away from the media and not answer questions. For as long as the Congress party continues to be running states in this country, it is accountable to us. And it must answer questions about the states that it's running. We don't care how badly it's hurting from the loss it faced in the election. It better come forward and answer the questions that we ask.